Hello everybody, today I'm going to present for you how to integrate ctrlX Bosch PLC with Automation Studio. My name is George Fatal, and in this presentation I want to cover three items. First one is how to set up a new ctrlX Bosch Core Virtual PLC. Second item I want to cover is how to configure the Control PLC application to communicate with Automation Studio. And the last and final item is how to build an Automation Studio project to communicate with the ctrlX Bosch PLC. So what we need to do this presentation, and if you want to do it on your own later on at home, you need Automation Studio version 6.4 or higher. You need the Bosch ctrlX Works version 1.12.1 and an OPC UA generic client, and I'm using in my case UA Expert version 1.4.4.275 or higher. So let's start the presentation and the project that we would like to build over here now. So first things is we want to start to control Bosch Core Virtual application. So we'll need to launch the Bosch ctrlX Work software. So I'm going to launch it. So once you launch it, it comes out like this, and you'll see at the beginning that it's an empty project. There is no PLC or virtual PLC running on my computer, and I'm going to build everything now step by step. First thing to do is to click on the plus over here to create a ctrlX Core PLC. So it's waiting for you to give it a name. So I'm going to call it AS-demo-PLC. Once I do this, you'll find over here that it creates for you the demo PLC, and it's offline. And then the next step is to start the ctrlX Core Virtual, and then you come over here, you click on this icon, and it goes through a booting process, and you'll see later on the application starting. Booting takes first time, it takes usually small time to do it, so we'll have to wait. There it is. So this is the login page for the PLC running virtually. So the username, by default, all the PLCs are created with a user called Boschrexroth, and the username and the password are the same. So if I copy the username and paste it as a password, and I accept the term of use, I log in, give me to the first page in the PLC. Now the PLC is empty. I have to load it with applications to be able to run my PLC program and to provide me the OPC UA server interface. So to do that, we'll have to install the application. By the way, these applications are given by Bosch, and it's part of the package of the ctrlX Core. So you install the application, and then what you have to do, you have to turn the PLC, turn it to service mode. Service mode is to just hold it until you can load this new program to it. So once it's reached the service mode, it comes out like this. And what you have to do here, you have to install from file, and these are the files that comes with the installation of the PLC. So we have to load the Rexroth PLC application to the PLC. So I install it, and then while it's installed, I can install the OPC UA server application, and then I install it too, and then here it's installing. And now once everything is completed, I'm gonna have a PLC waiting for me to be operational for my project. So next thing, Once I have these things loaded, I put back my PLC into operation mode. So I click here and continue. So you'll see now it's in operation mode. And to test to see what's going on, if I click over here on OPC UA and the overview, I'll see that it is running, and this is the endpoint URL of the OPC UA server, and this is the station name. In my case is 192.168.1 or AS demo PLC, and this is the communication port used to communicate with this OPC UA server. Automation Studio does not communicate with port 48440, so I have to change this to give it a port that Automation Studio can communicate with. So what we do over here in the action, I'll have to change the endpoint and give it here the next one, 48441, and then I want to use the policy none also. I check it to make it available for me, and I can save now. Now once I did the saving over here, everything is set properly in the PLC, but to make sure that I am communicating on 4840, I will PLC. Now what we can do, we can configure a PLC application. So what we can do, we just click here, configure PLC application. So it will, if I click on start ctrlX PLC engineering, this is software for programming the PLC. Here, do that. It will open for me the software. And for you who did programming in Codesys, this is the same IDE environment of Codesys to program the PLC. And so I'm assuming that you know how to do it in Codesys. So here it is. So it's opening the program. So it's waiting for me to give a name for the program. So I'm going to call it the same name as the PLC. You can give it any name you want. So I'm going to still use the same name of the PLC here. Demo PLC. And this is the blank program that it creates for me. Yeah. So as I said, it's a Codesys environment. So what you'll see over here, you see here the structure of your program. This is the default program. To create a structure that can communicate with Automation Studio using OPC UA server, we have to add, I'll add 3 more objects at the application level. So what we'll do here at the application, I will add an object. First one to add is the global variable list. We'll leave it at the default name, JVL. Then we'll add another one, which is add object, which is the symbol configuration. Symbol configuration, to create the OPC UA interface, we have to click on support OPC UA features. Once we create the project here, and then that's it. And then the programming language that it creates the software by default is a structured text. I want to create a programming ladder, so I'll need to add another object type POU, which is Programming Organization Unit. I'm going to give it the name My Ladder, and this one will, you see, you can select the language you want to use to do the programming. So I'm going to use ladder logic diagram. I'm going to add it, and it has been added, and to make it executable, I'll have to add it to the main task. So I'm just dragging the My Ladder here. Next step is to create variables for my program. So I click on GVL. What will give you here the interface to create the variable. So I'm going to start with first one. I'm going to use the tabular view. So in the tabular view, I can right click and insert. I'm going to create an application for using 16 Boolean input, 16 Boolean output, because a PLC, I'm assuming, has 16 input and 16 output. So I'm going to first create my input. So I'm going to call it input 1. And then after that, instead of continuing like this by inserting, I'm going to do something like a trick, do it faster. So I'll switch to my textual view. Then what I'll do here, it's a text editor. I'm going to copy it. Then I'm going to paste it 16 times. And then after this, I'm going to just change each one with incremented 4, 5, 6. I need one more step here to create a just like a small program, just to like a dummy program to complete this process. So I'm going to create a dummy ladder here. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to goes on my ladder, and then what I'm going to do, very simple program for testing. I'm going to use one contact, and here I'm going to use the first input, and I'm going to energize a coil here, and this one I'm going to energize the first output. Very simple program. Now once this is done, to prepare the program for OPC UA, I have to go select symbol configuration. I have to build my program. This is compiling the program, and then here in this object, it opened for me to create an interface to communicate with it with OPC UA. So it gives me the choice to what are the variables that I want to expose to the outside world to communicate with. So it's really everything in the GVL block here. So if I click on this, that's mean all these variables gonna be available once I download to the PLC, and to make them available to communicate with them using OPC UA protocol. So here it is. What we can do now is we'll go and download this program to the virtual PLC. So I select my demo PLC, double click on it, and then here I want to log to the PLC. So I scan the network, come here, scanning. If I scan, now in OPC UA protocol, to create security environment, what's happening here, the application exchange with each other's trusted certificates, and this is part of the protocol. So since I'm creating a new PLC, it has to create for this PLC a trusted certificate. So here I want to create a trusted certificate for this PLC. So I'm going to select here, install it as a trusted certificate into your local store controller certificate. This is a place on your computer where all the certificates of the PLC, the trusted certificates, are stored. So here I'm going to say yes, okay. Now you see here it's green. That means I am now in communication with the PLC. What I can do now is I can build my application, compile again. Everything now is compiled again, and then what I'll do here, online, do a multiple download. So here I'm downloading the application to the PLC. So now the process is complete. The application is created in the PLC. I close it. Then what I can do now, I can switch to online mode. So I'm in online mode. If I go there, so you see here I'm online with my PLC, and this is my single rung, which is a very simple application. Now let me put this now in half screen here. Now the next part is to complete the process and to validate the communication with OPC UA with the PLC. And this part we'll have to do it with the OPC UA generic client, which is UA expert. So I start UA expert, the application. Here it is. Now, first thing in any OPC application, I have to connect to my OPC server. The OPC server, the OPC UA server, is running in the PLC. So to see how to log into it, so this is here. This is the PLC application. If I here, you see here, I select OPC UA configuration status. It gives me here the URL address for the OPC UA server of the PLC, and this is, so I can select, I can copy and come back to my client, and then what I'll do here, I'm just gonna click on that to create a connection. I'm gonna do an advanced, click on advanced, and then here, by the way, you know, like I did it before, so but anyway, I'm gonna paste. So this is the address. Here I have to select the security policy basic 256 and then sign and encrypt. I have to select these two, and then here, to make sure that I'm going to communicate with it, instead of using the name of the PLC, I'm going to put in the IP address 192.168.1 and 1, and this is my username, Boschrexroth, and then I want to store it, and the password is going to also be Boschrexroth here. Then what's going to happen here, if I do trust server certificate, continue, so I have to refresh the screen again. So if I do it again, so you see here, it tried to communicate, and the PLC rejected the communication because it didn't know if it trusts this application to communicate with. So what we have to do, this is on the PLC side, I have to, in this window, do an action, do trust the PLC. So if I click here and select the trust, that would mean I'm saying to the PLC here, so let's repeat the process again. If I do it again, so this just to tell me that the first certificate was rejected and I ignore it. So if I do it, click it, ignore, now I'm in communication with the PLC. Now, as I said, all the variables that I created for the PLC, let's say if I go here, this variable here, they are all located here. This is the PLC side. This is communication by OPC UA client. To get it, you're going to go here, data layer. You'll see it's coming in a tree. Then after this, I go to PLC admin, no, PLC app, application, app, then symbol and GVL, and then you'll see here all the variables, they are there. So if I select all these variables, I can select all of them. So for example, I can do here a block. Select here everything. If I click my shift, see here I created a block, and then if I drag this, I put it over here. So it gives me here the status of this variable and communicate with them in real time. Now to test to see that the communication is working, what you can do, by the way, once it's communicating, you'll see that their status code, they're all in good. Now if I open here my ladder, you see in this program, very simple, if this variable is on, the out will be forced to on. So if I take this variable, which is IN1, I double click here and then click it to make status 1. So see what's gonna happen here. If I click on the return, so you see here it's on, and then it energized the output 1. So you see output 1 here, which is this variable, it's true. Now if I put it back to off here, look here, out 1 is true, still true. So if I do it off here, so out 1 is false. So now I'm really in communication with the ctrlX Bosch PLC, and I'm ready to move on to do the connection with Automation Studio. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to minimize this screen here. Okay. Going into the tool ribbon, Communication Manager, that Communication Manager here. Then in Communication Manager, you're going to select OPC UA Client, OPC Client UA, and then add an OPC server. If I click on Add OPC Server, give you a window here where you have to give the address of the OPC UA servers. So here, instead of doing it, keying it, copy it here, paste. Now once I do that, it gives me to complete. I have to tell it how I'm gonna log in to the OPC server. So here I'm not logging anonymous. I have to log in with a username and a password, and here the username is Boschrexroth, and the password, I copy it and I store it here, and here it is. Now, as it happened with this application, the OPC UA client, generic one, and this library, I have a Bosch ctrlX PLC. So here I'm gonna bring it over to this project here, and this is the PLC, and I'm having here one input card and one output card. So now what we do is we build a very simple application. You know that we already built an application here which have a variable which is connected to input 1, and it energizes output 1. So what we can do here, very simple, we can come over here, use the electrical control library. Then we're going to take here in the contacts, I'm going to create here, I'll take a switch here, I'm going to take a button, I'm going to connect, this is input card, and it starts from input 1 to input 16, output card, output 1 to output 16. So this one I'm going to call it start push button here. And then I'm going to use here as output component, I will take a light, I'm going to take an indicator light here that will go on output 1, and let's say I'm going to call it light. Now we have to complete the wiring, so here let's first power on the PLC, so it needs 24 volt to be powered, and then we need so this is we power the PLC. Now after this, the PLC, we have to power the input and output card, so I'm having here, so this is the connection you have to do to power the first card. This is the input, this is the output here. Now I powered these two cards. Now I need to give power to my input. So 24 volt. So this is my input, and I need to give power to my light. And this is light. Now the next things I want to make sure is to connect these cards to the PLC. So what we do, this object, to do the connection, you put the mouse at the light here, and then you see that it shows control click to just that I have just like if I do control click here, so it linked my input to the PLC, and if I do it the same over here, it linked my output to the PLC. Now to make sure that everything is connected and wired, if I come back again to Tools, Communication Manager, you see here I have to create, there is a group that was created, but I have to connect the group to my server here, and you'll see here everything is connected, my inputs and my output, and everything is in the status good. Now if I close this window here, we can start the application. Remember what's happening: if I push on this button, the light should be turned on. So I can just bring it this in half screen here. Can just do that here. Now let's see, this is the PLC and this is Automation Studio. Now if I put it in simulation mode, what I'll do here, push on the light, you see here, as soon as I click on my start push button, contacts here, and then turns on the light, and it turns on the light. And this is how Automation Studio now is communicating with the ctrlX core of Bosch by OPC UA. So in this project, I built it like I did the previous project where I brought the PLC with the cards. Okay. Now what I did over here, I brought the start, the stop push button, start, stop, connected to input 1, input 2, and then I used the proxies, the A and the minus. I just like put input 3 and 4. So this is my input side, and the output side I have the cycle, the light over here will comes at output 1, and the two solenoid A plus and A minus, they are brought to output 1 and output 2 and output 3. So this is the project in Automation Studio. Now if I go back to the PLC here, I can just like come over here, put it in half screen, put my PLC in the other half here, and then go simulation mode. And then what I'll do over here, I'm gonna start. Then when you see here the sequence executing in the PLC. So this is what's happening in the PLC, and this shows you here the communicating with Automation Studio, and then it shows you here how it's acting this cylinder. So if I stop, it stops. If I start again, it starts again, and so on. And this is really how you make Automation Studio communicate with the ctrlX Bosch PLC. So that's it, and I hope that everything is clear for you in your mind. So if you have any problem or if you have any questions, feel free to communicate with us by phone or by email, so we can answer your question and show you other things that you want to do. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention, and we'll see you next time.